So I'm Luke Davidson from Abundigro, and we are bringing a new solution gladiator to the market. So we want to go through the benefits of silica and all the various forms that it comes in, what's out there in the market at the moment, and how to differentiate between all the various products. We'll go through some of the real benefits from a biological perspective, and really going into the true value and sort of the neglected value of silica in sports turf, but it's certainly very well used in the agricultural sector. So Frank Huben is from the Netherlands. He's been developing silica solutions for over 30 years. If you do see me
23 years to be exactly.
Pardon?
23 years.
Oh, 23 years. 23 years.
It's
Okay.
a long while, but it's not yet 30.
Okay, cool. Frank's going to be talking. It's going to be his presentation. He's the developer of Gladiator. So I think that's enough from me. I'm going to hand it over to Frank, and he can go for it.
Thank you, Luke, for giving us the opportunity to go a little bit deeper into silica today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and giving us this opportunity. Today, we're going to talk about silicon, the element Si, and we're going to learn you a little bit more about what is silica, where it's coming from, the different forms, the sources, the application, etc. We work, as said, more than 23 years on MOSA, Mono-Silicic acid, the bioavailable part of silicon, and we believe this development has given a new opportunity for efficient and also very efficient supplementation of silicon to plants by the root and by the leaf. We talk about 100% bioavailable form, and we're going to explain you a little bit more in the coming sheets. Can move to the next one, Luke. Yeah. So as said, we are a formulation partner of Abundigro, and for more than over 20 years, 23 years exactly, this year, we are researching silicon. And in order to really conduct the research as good as possible, we had to focus on a few main issues, what we have with silicon in general, and especially with monosilicic acid. Because monosilicic acid is very unstable in nature. You have to understand that 0.2 ppm at a very low concentration, it tends to polymerize. This is one of the problems which we see with monosilicic acid. Another way, what for us was important, once you have the stable molecule, what is the best way, or what are the best ways to apply the product to the plants, depending on the crop, depending on the cultivation station, method, etc., etc. Is it hydroponics? Is it open field? Is it in the greenhouse? So we focus also on this part of the game, because it's important that the way to applicate gives the best result and the less stress for the farmer or the greenkeeper. And the third point, which is, I think, the most important one, what does it do? The modes of action of this molecule. Because in the literature, a lot has been researched on silicon, but based on silicates, which has limited modes of action compared to monosilicic acid, which we will explain you in the next sheet, in the coming sheets. So as said, today we talk about Si, silicon. But the silicon, what we find in the nature, is always connected to oxygen, because those two elements are the major elements on the Earth crust, silicon and oxygen. So we find the silica back in clay, in sand, in rock formations under the SiO2 silicon dioxide form. Very important. If you look at silicon sources, we see often silicates, calcium silicates, potassium silicates, sodium silicates, and others. This is silicon dioxide connected to a mineral. And then we have also silicic acids. it's important to understand that silicic acids is a collection of all kind of molecules. This goes from the smallest molecule, which is the monomer, to bigger molecules, dimer, trimer, oligomeric silicic acid, colloidal. It gets bigger and bigger, more connected, and at the end, these are polymers. Let me get back to the silicates. This is essential to understand really good the availability of the silicon source. So as said, the bioavailable part is monosilicic acid, and you can only use it in a stabilized form, in the form of MOSA, and the formula, a chemical formula is SiOH4. So in the middle we have an Si, and on each side we have an OH molecule. This also explains that it's very synergetic with any other molecule. Let's move to the next slide, please.
Okay, just before we do that, can I quickly get a poll from everyone just to indicate a yes or no? Have you had any experience with any kind of silica-derived solution? That'll be helpful now that you've gotten that initial introduction.
So we consider silicon a little bit as a forgotten element, and I'm going to explain you a little bit why. So at the end you understand why it's forgotten, why it's underlooked, and the first element, as I said, you have silicon and you have oxygen. Those are the two major elements on Earth. So imagine, as earlier explained, the form where we find the silicon goes under the silicon dioxide form. The bioavailable form is monosilicic acid. But the thing is, there's silicon everywhere, but it's not in the right form. It's not under the available form. Easy to understand. Imagine you're on the ocean, you're thirsty, there's water everywhere, but you cannot drink the water. You just only drink it one time and you get sick, and it's not, the water has to be transformed. You could compare this also to silicon. There's silicon everywhere in the earth crust. It's after the oxygen, the second element, but it's not available. This is also one of the reasons that it's underlooked. Scientific research has been done, but basic point is that it was not considered as an essential element. We can't grow plants without silicon. We keep plants alive. But if you really want to perform them and give them the resistance and the performance, silicon is a key element. And because of all these reasons, we consider silicon as a forgotten element. And we will later explain you in the next sheets what you can do with this forgotten element and what is essential to understand. Can go to the next slide, Luke, please. So if we look a little bit about the research that has been done, and I must point out before we go further to this, that most of the research, traditionally research, is done on silicates, potassium silicates and calcium silicates by mainly the three main researchers worldwide on silicon. And the last years, more and more research is done on silicic acid, monosilicic acid, etc. But we go a little bit to the traditional research just to show you what has been done and what is quoted. So as said, Professor Ma, he is one of the top research also in silicon. He quotes that the Earth crust is 50 to 70% containing silicon. So it's a major element. We also see that the soil, we have different types of soils. We find silicon back in different concentrations. We have silicon-rich soils and silicon-poor soils. But even if it's a rich soil, the silicon is not available, directly available. It has to be transformed. We see also that the research that has been done, silicon can really strengthen plants in different ways against all kinds of stress, as well as biotic, as well as abiotic stresses. And important to know also, if you look at the silicon content of different plants, we see quite a lot of variations. It goes from 0.1% up to 10%. That's 100 times more. And we also see that plants handle silicon differently. We have a passive assimilation, an active, and also some plants have rejective assimilation of silicon. All this, I must point out again, is based on research with traditional silicon sources, silicates, potassium silicates, calcium silicates. If you look at the history, what is the recognition of silicon in agriculture? Japan was one of the first one, and Korea, where silicon in the early 50s was considered as an essential element. Furthermore, we started to join silicon conferences, more and more research were done, and because of this in Brazil, there was a silicon conference. They decided to consider it as a beneficial micronutrient. In China, they realized that half of the paddy rhizoles are silicon deficient. And in South America and US, we see that each country is paying attention to silicon, but giving it its own status. In the US, it's a plant beneficial substance. And we see in South America also more and more recognition as a perfect tool against biotic and abiotic stress. In the EU, after years of negotiating, we had the EBIC, etc. We thank God we now have the new EU CE regulation for fertilizers as well as biostimulants. This will give a big advantage to select the real biostimulants with the real modes of action, and also it helps to make claims about the effects of the specific biostimulant. So this helps a lot, and all this research, I believe, will help, and especially the new research will help us to show the potential in sustainable solution programs in IPM for this molecule. This slide is one of the most important slides of the whole presentation, and one of the most important ones, because as I said, silicon is everywhere, but on the other hand, it's not available. Back in the day, we had to educate people on silicon. The last years, it's more and more educating them. So because people heard about silicon the last years, about the right source, the right molecule of silicon. Because some things sound a little bit contradictional, especially if you look at the content of the different sources. So I will try to explain you by presenting this pyramid. And the pyramid is a visual presentation of the different sources. I will explain also the contents in silicon, so you have an idea of the concentrations. But also on the other side, you see the bioavailability. So long story short, at the bottom, it's concentrated. The more you go up into the pyramid, the concentration of the silicon is lower. But the molecule is in the monomeric at the top. And at the beginning, we are still at silicon dioxide. So let's start at the bottom. We see plant origins. We see from traditional medicine also, but also from traditional farming, that people reintegrate silicon-rich particles from plants. And we see it in the rice production. The rice husk is mixed in the soil again, and it's a source of silicon. Very limited, of course, but it's a source of silicon. We also see plants which are very rich in silicon, like horsetail, equisetum, bamboo, yucca, which are used in biological farming, but also in traditional medicine, etc. we don't think it's very suitable for large-scale agriculture, but we have to mention it. It's a source, and we see in some parts of the world people use it also in agriculture. When we go to the more used at big scale silicates, we get to the powder silicates, which is more known as calcium silicates, diatomic earth particles. These are all minerals which are mined and are spread on large scale, 500 keys to sometimes 1 or 2 tons per hectare. So a lot of handling and transport. And we also see that these products often are contaminated with some heavy metals because they come from mining. These products, just to have an idea, can go up to 40% silicon content. So it sounds very interesting because of the high concentration of silicon, but the availability is very limited. You have to flow these products into the soil, and with the help of microlife, etc., some silicic acid will be deliberated and beneficial for plants. But it's a complicated story. You depend on microlife in the soil, which is already low in most of the places, and it takes time. And today we don't have time. We go a little bit up into the pyramid, and we go to the liquid formulations. Compared to the calcium silicates and the powders, it's already an advantage to have a source of silicon in a liquid form. So traditionally from the greenhouses, most of the people know quite well the potassium silicates, which is most of the research is done on potassium silicates. And advantage is it's a liquid. So you can dilute it in water and apply it to the roots by irrigation systems, for instance. You cannot really spray it because it has a high pH, and it creates a high EC on the leaf because it's rich on potassium also. So it has this limited field of application. And we also see quite high dosages, up to 30 liters per hectare per season, depending, even in hydroponics, it can go even more than this. Coming from the liquid silicates, we move to the more available molecules, collection of molecules, which we call, as earlier said, silicic acid. In this silicic acid we have is a collection of different sizes of molecules. And the most common which we find are oligomeric silicic acid complexes, or more bigger ones, colloidal silicic acid complexes. Advantage, they're liquid, they are more available than the potassium silicates, but because of the limited availability and because the concentration is quite lower, and especially stability, it has limited stability. We see dosages from 3 to 5 liters per hectare. All these dosages are the dosages on agricultural crops, average dosages. And at the top of the pyramid, we see the monosilicic acid, MOSA. This is the concentrated form of stabilized monosilicic acid. As said, it's 100% plant available and very, very stable. It also increases the uptake of nutrients, one of the things that we don't really see with other sources of silicon. That is more to the protection of the plant, the cell wall. So we have some extra modes of action. We will explain you later. And it also is a tool for stress resistance. If you look at the dosages, total dosage per hectare per season is 1 to 2 liters per hectare. So this is 4 to 8 sprays. So imagine if we come from going back to calcium silicates, where we have a minimum of 500 kilograms per hectare. When we go to sodium silicates, 30 liters, we go to silicic acid, 3 to 5, and we go to MOSA, where we are 1 to 2 liters max. So this, and the most contradictional thing is that we only have If we just look at the silicon content as Si, the calcium silicates have a content of 40% Si, but under the silicon dioxide form, which has to be transformed. The potassium silicates have around 25% of Si, but silicon dioxide form. If we go to the silicic acid, which we see, they are around 0.5 to 1% SSI, but it's not under the monomeric form. So it's still under a longer chain, oligomeric or colloidal silicic acid. If we look at the MOSA, we are at maximum 1% silicon, Si, but 100% monosilicic acid confirmed. So this also allows us with very low dosages, like 400 milliliter. If we take the 400 milliliter per hectare, which we apply on the grasses. If you consider there's only 1% like active material, this silicic acid, we talk about grams. We talk about a treatment of 7-8 grams of active material per hectare. And only then the people understand what is the difference in molecule between Gladiator, MOSA, and potassium silicate or calcium silicate or other silicic acids. I think these are the main things to really understand what is the difference between the sources and the advantages and the disadvantages of other sources. So in order to understand a little bit more about your experience, please also check the polls and we can incorporate it later in the discussion.
Yeah, so if you have had any experience with a silica formulation, then just jot down on the poll quickly, monosilicic, silicic acid, potassium or sodium silicates, or the powder, the calcium silicates.
So in order to go a little bit more into the specifications, so what's the profile of MOSA? So sometimes I will repeat, but that's part of the profile. So we talk about the stabilized form of monosilicic acid, absorbable as well as by the leaves as the roots, compared to other forms which are exclusively and partly limitedly available by roots, so not available by leaf. 80% of our clients apply the product by foliar spray, so by the leaf. We also see a very quick time to absorb, especially on a foliar spray. It's very, very quick absorbed, and by drip irrigation also. We have checked this by plant sap analysis. Application methods is by sprayers, foliar application, or drip irrigation, or drenching, or hand watering, or so we can go by the leaf or by the root, with an average dosage per hectare per treatment of 350 to half a liter per treatment. 6 to 10 times per season max, with the frequency depending on the crop from every week, every 2 weeks, or in the grasses 1 time a month. Our experience of 20 years is that it's very compatible with all kinds of agrochemicals and other fertilizers, as long as you respect the preparation. So this silicon also has to go first in the water. Once it's deliberated, then you can apply all the other products. And we also have a guaranteed stability of 2 years, which is very, very important. And for other non-mono but more silicic acid solutions, we see stability up to 6 months. So you already see some products polymerize when you dilute them. So this is one of the key USPs, that we have a really strong stability of a very tricky molecule. And in order to guarantee this, we have also a very, very high quality of ingredients. So the ingredients are all pharma and food grade ingredients, and everything is produced in a GMP environment. So this is, as said, to guarantee the quality and the stability. But on the other hand, we also think that's a very unique selling point in agriculture and in golf courses, because not everybody can say that his biostimulant or his fertilizer is made under GMP standards. GMP standards are usually only used for food supplements or medicines. So I think it's very important, and I don't know any other silicon sources which can be comparable quality-wise. So pharma quality means you don't have any. It's very pure. It has also its price, of course, but the purity is guaranteed. No heavy metals, no side molecules or whatever. And because of all this, it allows us to make formulas for plants, but also for animals and even for humans, specifically formulated and positioned. It brings us to also a very important slide where, okay, what is this MOSA doing to plants? Because as I already explained in the research on silicates, we already see a lot of very beneficial results for plants, but it's more and more focus on the first one. So I have here laid out 3 modes of action. The first mode of action is what I call more the mechanical action. It's strengthening the cell walls. So what we see, once the silicon is absorbed by the plant, it will polymerize into the plant. And especially under the cuticulus, we will have an extra protection layer, which will protect cell walls throughout the whole plant, from root to stem, to leaf, to young leaf, to fruits, to flower. And so that's also one of the reasons that you have to give silicon frequently, periodically, in order to allow the new leaf, the new grass, the new fruits to build up their silicon layers. Because as soon as you give it, it will 90% of it will polymerize into the plant and will strengthen cell walls, but also will improve the interaction between the cell wall and the water inside fruit or inside plants. So this mechanical barrier is, as said, a barrier against insects, against fungus, and it also, what we see in some crops, it allows us to have a better shelf life of fruits and vegetables. Second mode of action, in my opinion, the most important, and the one we worked also the most on it, because there is a guy who won 2 times the Nobel Prize, Linus Pauling, and not only 1 time, 2 times, so I think he's a very intelligent person. And one of his statements was that any disease is related to a mineralization problem. And I fully agree with him on this, because in all our 20 years research, I have seen that many problems. Is it fungal attacks? Is it insect attacks? A lot comes from unbalanced mineralization, created by the farmer, sometimes without knowing. It's not his fault, it's just the lack of education. So what we see, monosilicic acid is for me the chef of the orchestra. He is the mineralization manager. And what's happening with nutrients? We see why I said most of the problems come created by the farmer without knowing. The farmer is going to feed the soil, feed the crop, but it's very elementary. Most of it is the NPK, so we push plants on nitrogen, nitrates, and we push plants also on potassium. Those 2 elements are the most mobile elements, so the plant will absorb them very quick, very easy. And if this goes uncontrolled, the antagonist of these elements will be deficient. Nitrogen has an antagonist, calcium, so the excess of nitrogen will push away and create a deficiency in calcium, and potassium has an antagonist with magnesium. So basically what we see in a lot of crops, that the farmer push, we see it also on grasses, sport grasses, football grasses, that they push too hard on N and K, so the nitrates and the potassium, and creating by this automatically, because of the natural antagonism of these elements, a deficiency in calcium, magnesium. Calcium is very important for your structure. Magnesium is important for your photosynthesis. And we see in the plant sap analysis, because of this unbalanced nutrition, that plant sap goes down and your crop gets more susceptible for pests and for fungus, etc. So our opinion, the new crop protection is crop nutrition and stimulation. And the MOSA is a key element in avoiding antagonist action and optimizing mineralization. And the third mode of action is the effect on the plant defense immune system. So what we see, I always see, we can measure this, polyphenol action, etc., enzymatic activity in the plant, but I compare it a little bit as an alarm system. The moment I treat the plant with monosilicic acid, I prime the plant. That means I install more or less an alarm system. Let's visualize it like this. The alarm system will detect if there is an alarm, if there is a stress. Depending on the type of stress and the intensity of the stress, defense systems are activated. And this allows the plant, and we see this, of course, on the stress condition. We can measure this and we can analyze this, that the plant can handle the stress, he can continue to produce, and he is less affected by biotic and abiotic stresses. So, resuming, I just explained you 3 modes of action. See it as a castle, what you have to protect. See, you can better protect the castle with 3 walls than 1 wall. So what we see here, we have the first wall is the mechanical wall. My plant tissue is better protected, okay? We will show you later how this works. The second mode of action, I'm better protected, I'm better mineralized, optimize my mineralization. And the third, I'm alert. My defense system is alerted. So these 3 is, this gives you a real natural protection and allows the plant to continue to produce. In the next slides, we will go a little bit deeper in each of these modes of action to better understand. So the first one, the mechanical barrier. On the left one, you see a second layer under the cuticle. We see this is how nature works. If the plant is allowed to absorb enough silicon on the right form, it creates by itself a second layer, a layer who protects the cell wall from penetrating insects, sucking insects, fungus, from dried, etc. This is mechanical. We see this on the right. It's a cut of the root system. So we don't see it only on the leaf, but also in the root. So you see left the treated plant and right the untreated. On the left, you see a lot of crystallizations, and these are strategic crystallizations of silicon into the plant. And this is a mechanical barrier against, in this case, it's in the root. It's a mechanical barrier against root fungals, but also nematodes. And we see this also in the young leaf and throughout all the plant. If you go to the next, there is an interesting one. We have, before we measured the firmness of fruits, etc., but the thing is, everything is destructive. So the thing, I wanted to look at fruits at different stages. So we developed with an institute in Italy, IRM. That is the one MRI scan. You go to the doctor, he puts you in a system and he can do a full scan of you. This same technique we used for fruits and vegetables treated and untreated. And this is a nice one just to understand a little bit more the mechanical barrier. On the left, you see strawberry, which have been untreated, and on the right, we see the treated ones. We see a few things which are quite interesting. So we see on the red circles the impact of the finger when they pick the fruit. That's when you have soft tissue, that's where the fruit got damaged, and especially strawberry, that's where the pathogens can go in, and that's also where you have a negative influence on your shelf life. On the right, you see more really white. You see also in the middle a different form of the strawberry, and we don't see any impact of the finger, which gives us, in this case, a 5-day more shelf life. Just to understand how this interaction goes, and we also see a stronger encapsulation of the free water. The less free water there is, the better is your shelf life of your fruits. If the cell walls start to leak, the water becomes free water, it's not encapsulated anymore, and your fruit starts to rotten slowly but slowly. So this is the mechanical barrier. To the next slide, we will have more information about this mineralization optimization. So as I explained, some nutrients they don't work together. They're antagonists, not symbiotic. So we had a client, a big asparagus producer, hundreds of hectares in Germany, and one of the main problems in this case was very heavy potassium concentrations in the soil. The potassium we cannot remove from the soil, it's impossible. So each year this guy had quality problems. So we treated a foliar treatment with 4 treatments of only 240 milliliter per hectare. So in total it was 1 liter in 1 season. And we did the plant sap analysis before and after the treatments. And it's very interesting to look. Let's go to the control. You see potassium, calcium, magnesium. In the untreated, we see over 10,000 ppm of potassium, which is crazy high for an asparagus. But this is because of the soil there's too much potassium, so the plant, potassium is mobile, so he will take it easy up. Antagonist of potassium is magnesium. So by this high absorption of potassium, the magnesium absorption is very limited, and also the calcium absorption. So this gives us quality problems. If we go to the MOSA column, we see that it reduces automatically with 40% just by 4 sprays. Imagine, 40%, I got a reduction of my potassium. 6,000 is still high compared, if you see at strawberry, red strawberry at the maturation, 6,000 is okay. But that's, 5,506 is okay. But this is still quite high. But the amazing effect is what happened to the calcium magnesium. We didn't apply any calcium or any magnesium, but by reducing the uptake of the potassium, we allowed the plant to uptake calcium and magnesium with significant increase without supplying it. So, long story short, the nutrients are blocked, and this unlocks it because you can add calcium, magnesium, but it's not going to work. You cannot remove the calcium, so you need an enhancer, a mineralization enhancer. And here you see really the effect of it has a regulating effect on the uptake. So if there's too much potassium, and we see the same with nitrates, it's going to slow down, control this uptake, and favors the uptake of calcium, magnesium in this type. Can go to the next one. So this is, for me, this is one of the main things. And then we also did some trials on roses, which are quite susceptible for powdery mildew. And back in the day, we did the trial, Official Institute in Holland, and we did a control, so only sprayed water. We did the traditional fungicide. We did the MOSA, and we did MOSA combination with calcium and some amino acid. So here you see also the MOSA and the synergy with calcium, which will be important later in the story of the Gladiator product, okay? So week 1, 0 infection. The infection comes slowly but slowly. Week 2, we see already some infections. Week 3, we see in the control 10%. We see in the MOSA and in the a little bit more controlled, and of course in the fungicide very low. And now comes the interesting part. The week after, we see that the infection goes really wide. More than 60% of the control is infected. The Malta tox can keep it up to 10. The MOSA only solo does still 33%. So compared to the control, it's half. But amazing enough, combination with MOSA and especially with the calcium in this case is better than the fungicide. And then we also saw that reducing or skipping the whole fungicide gives an extra growth to the roses, because we have seen they sprayed 3 times per week this fungicide, which has also a negative effect on the growth and the development of the rose. So in this guy, we see really a synergetic effect in controlling the infection and at the same time reducing the use of the fungicide. Can go to the next slide. If any questions, just type and we will go back on it after the discussion. So today, it was important to give you the story before. What is MOSA, the different ways to applicate, the different sources. But today here we come to the pitch, the Gladiator. The Gladiator is a unique formula of MOSA, monosilicic acid, combined with calcium and boron. These 3 elements, silicon, calcium, boron, in the right form and formula is a triangle of strength. If you look at the biochemical sequence of the uptake of minerals, it always starts with boron. In nature, the roots, because the boron will increase the osmotic pressure of the plant. So the plant, this will allow the plant to leak sugars by the roots. These sugars will feed microlife. There's specific microlife which will help silification of soil and plants. And this is the way in general how the calcium is helped to taken up and the nitrogen, etc. If something goes wrong into this sequence, we have a problem with the mineralization. And just because of this, you can really understand how essential and how important this Gladiator formula is, because we got the main elements. We got silicon in its monosilicic form. We connect the calcium, which is there are 2 immobile elements, calcium and boron. So this is we have one element, silicon, which is everywhere and not available. We made it available, and we connected it with the 2 non-mobile elements for plants. So imagine just looking at this sheet, formulation-wise, how interesting this formulation is.
Frank, quick question that we're getting. Well, 2 nice questions here. One is, it's just referring back to the pyramid earlier. Okay. Why is the silicic acid in oligomeric form why is it chemically unstable compared with monomeric MOSA? Okay, that's a good question. Thank you for that. We have seen that silicic acid is a collection of different molecule sizes, and we also have seen that these molecules polarize and depolarize. So it's like you have the free and the bound, and the more free, 100% free is monomeric, and the last free, they get connected.
So we see, because of this constant polymerization and depolymerization, and it's more polymerization, that because of this chemically reaction into the molecule, into the blend, this is one of the reasons that oligomeric and colloidal complexes of silicic acid have a problem with their stability. Some are already starting to polymerize as soon as they are produced. Others have this after 3 to 6 months. And we have seen this because we do dilution tests, and we see the dilution test must be 100% soluble in water. And if there are any impurities or any polymerizations, even at the low level, you can see this. So we have checked this also in dilution tests with special lights on it in order to observe this.
Perfect, all said, nice. Then we have another question around, are there some studies on the relationship of MOSA dosage with polyphenols and flavonoids, or various concentrations thereof? So basically mixtures. I can sort of speak to that in terms of we've been getting fantastic results with the Gladiator and our Champion solution, which is a flavonoid mixture with fulvic acid, seaweed, and protein hydrolysate. So in the combination with those two solutions has been giving fantastic green up, incredible sword strength. So we're predominantly using it in sports turf. So we're getting an erect sword. But yeah, maybe you can go to the science of that, Frank.
Yeah, so what we are doing, we know these compounds are also very interesting for plants, especially if you look at the defense system. Some of our experimental formulas are going also into this direction. Just to give you a small, we talk about flavonoids. We are doing some experimental formulas with the MOSA and propolis. I know if you're familiar with this. This is part of the royal jelly of the bees. It's different, but it's very rich on flavonoids. We know this also from food supplements. People take this before the winter time kicks in to boost their immune systems. And we have seen that it's already applicated in plants as a biofungicide, etc. And we are now checking the possibility. We have some first batches made of propolis and MOSA, but it's, as I said, it's in a really experimental stage. We are still at stability tests. After that will be biological tests. But I think what we see is that the MOSA molecule is, because of its small size and also about the 4 OHs and on each side, is very, very synergetic with other biostimulants and molecules. We also see a very interesting interaction with one of Luke's seaweed kelp products, and we are working on synergetic formulations, and often you just need a little bit of a certain molecule in order to give the plant the signal. And in this way, we also see maybe the possibilities with the flavonoids.
Perfect, nicely said. Right, back to your presentation.
Yeah, important, as I said earlier, the instructions and the dosage for today. We talk more about the foliar application, because you have to understand, if you go back to the specs, you have seen that the pH is quite low. It's less than 1, so it's quite acid, but it's a weak acid. So the pK level value is very low, so it doesn't have an effect on the pH of your tank mix. To give an idea, phosphoric acid formulated has a pH around 2. If you add this to the water, it will acidify your tank mix quite a lot. It's also used for acidification of tank mixes. But if we take a look at our product, which has a lower pH, lower than 1, but it has no pK value. It has no effect on the pH. So I put it in my tank mix. It will maybe lower my pH with 0.1, 0.2 point, which is nothing. This is an important thing to know. Because of this, there is one critical moment, because you have to understand we have packed and concentrated a molecule which is very, very hard to concentrate and which tends to polymerize. So we have fixed this. We first was concentrating it, then it was stabilizing it, and then formulating it. And we managed this. But the problem is it has a low pH. At the moment you're going to dilute the product, your water has a pH from 5 to 7 or 8, depending on the area and the quality. So when I dilute the molecule, I don't want any other molecules in my water, because it grabs any molecule, because it's very synergetic. I come with a concentrated molecule. I will dilute it in the water. At that time, the molecule is deliberated, okay? And it becomes active, but at the same time, metastatic. So there's an order to prepare your tank mix. Water first, then you add your Gladiator, and then you mix it, and then you add any other products, and then you can spray it. Don't keep it in the tank for 1 or 2 days, because as soon as the story behind this is that we have concentrated and stabilized it on a very, very, very decent way and very guaranteed way. And if you dilute it, comes just the moment of diluting. It's important that you put it in clean water and first the Gladiator in the tank. Then you can do everything what you want. At the end, you can adjust your pH, that your tank mix has the right pH, and you can spray it. This is one of the major things.
If you don't mind just judging your sector there.
So tank mix compatibility, no problem. As soon as you respect the preparation order, there's no problem, because we have people in the fruits. They really sometimes are real alchemists. They mix 8 or 10 products, and everything is okay. As soon as once this molecule is deliberated in water and activated, you can add all the rest and you can spray it in together in a combination. As said, standard 400 mils. We go 8 to 12 times, an average of 10. So each month we go on the grasses. It's 3-4 liters per hectare is the standard rate. As I said, Gladiator on grasses, it's a very, very interesting molecule, because we know grass is a silicon accumulator. It goes up to 4% in the grasses, so grass is silicon dependent. What we also see that the silification of grasses is directly linked to transpiration. The mechanical barrier is also helping, and that we have observed. The opening and the closing of the stomata, what we see, it helps to reduce the transpiration. That is, of course, in the dry season, a very interesting tool. We see also for some applications on grasses, it's the control of the growth of the grass is very important. We see, and like we have also people, they work on the grasses for the community, the green spaces, etc. When they have to mow the grasses a lot, it costs money. It's not good for the environment, because you have to transport it, everything. So they look really, how can I control the growth of grass? And we have seen with higher dosages of the Gladiator, 1 or 2 times, we can really control and get the grass more firm, more controlled growth, because everything what grows too fast got weak. So with controlled uptake, controlled growth is always better. We see also in the applications what Luke did, and also in our own test, that it really improves the color and the appearance, the standing of the grass. This is what we also see in other crops, of course. And in general, it improves the natural resistance. We see it in the wet areas, more the fungal, the powdery mildew problems, and in the dry area, it's more it can be the salinity and the water stress problems. So I think it's a real nice tool. And on the next page, we have like a total collection of let's call it USPs, let's call it tools for greenkeepers, for people who work on the grasses. It goes from nitrate reduction. If we reduce the nitrates, we improve the Brix levels. With higher Brix, we have less problems with insects. When we improve calcium magnesium, we improve the internal pH of the plant sap, which protects us against fungal diseases. And this is how it gives improved natural resistance. We can control the growth of the grasses. We also see, which is quite interesting, we didn't even talk about that many people and many crops, they combine this product or these kind of formulations with PPPs, like plant protection products, fungicide, herbicide, insecticides. And what we see, and we also do research on this, that not just by reducing it, but by using the same rates, we see better performance of the molecules, but also less phytotoxicity. And this is also a very interesting element in IPM, to use your PPP in a better, more moderate, but more efficient way. And of course, we see the improved visual aspects, because on grasses, the people are still visually focused. And we do all the analysis, what you can imagine, but still the visual aspect is one which is very important. Going to the next slide. So we did, as said, quite some research. It's more on recreational grass, on some football grasses. And we checked soil, we checked grass, sap analysis, and DVI, etc., etc., in order to see what are the real results and the effects on it. This is also a good guideline and how to control your grass, because it's the same like a crop for a farmer. Does the crop control you, or do you control the crop? And I think it's not only the molecule and the product, but it's also the way how to apply it and how to look at the crop or at the grass. And this is also an extra what we like to incorporate in it. It's the molecule combined with also the knowledge of in this case the Abundigro company on the grass, and you guys as all experts on grasses. And then this is also what we do at our internal facility. We work on different types of grasses for different type of clients. We work on the sport grasses. We also work on the prairies for the feed grasses and on some recreational grasses. So we have different seeds of different type of grasses. We do this outdoor in the greenhouse and also indoor on grass mats. We repeat the treatments what you normally are going to do on the golf courses, and by doing this in an indoor environment, it allows us to speed it up and to repeat it in order to get statistically correct analysis and reports. We got to the end of my presentation. Today we hope we could learn you a little bit more about the silicon, but also about a specific formulation for better and stronger grass, the Gladiator, which we have created in collaboration with Abundigro. As said, we do the in-house stability testing, the formulation, the biological testing and screening, and also the technical training and advice for the advisors. And I think these are the keys for new partnerships. And hopefully today we made new partners with you guys and with the Abundigro on the Gladiator product. As far as I know, I'm not the salesman here. I'm more the technical guy behind it. But I see because that's why we do the research ourselves too. But also I see from Luke the impact and the very positive feedback from his clients in a short delay. So it's very promising.
Frank, that was an outstanding introduction. Thank you so
Thank
much. Thank you for preparing it so well. It was incredibly insightful. It doesn't matter how many times you go through this with me, I still seem to learn so much more every time I listen to you. So well done. That was fantastic. I hope everyone else also got just as much out of it as I did. I'm going to just launch 2 more polls quickly, if you don't mind, before you leave. Just let me know. One, if you are interested in the Gladiator, and 2, if you don't mind being contacted by me, I'll jump on it and just we can have a discussion about the solution and any other questions that you might have. This might not necessarily be directly related to Gladiator. We have open communication policies, of course, and the more communication we can have, the better. We love to help wherever we can. I mean, that's pretty much the philosophy of Abundigro, is let's grow together in every way. So thank you for taking the time out. I see we have gone a little bit over time already, so I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. If you do have any question, I'm just checking at the chat box now. If there's any further questions, please jot it down now quickly. Other than that, I'm going to love and leave you. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us. I hope you got everything that you wanted out of it. And thank you again, Frank. You were superb. And that's it from us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to do this. And let's see what the questions are. And maybe we can organize in the future another one to go even deeper into this molecule.
I think you're absolutely right. I think a follow-up one would be good to actually field a more inclusive and participative kind of a discussion group where we can actually address various crops.
More into
and
the
then
grasses
maybe
too.
open it up to the greenkeepers to ask more about their practices and the mixing it with various questions, like for instance the question on flavonoids, and using things like is there a possibility that it can polymerize in their mixes, for instance? Can it block the sprayers? Those kind of question marks. So I think we can have a more open conversation in the future. But in the meantime, if any one of you has a question, immediately you can just send us an email or give us a call. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to close the webinar now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend coming. Take care.